Yes, so today we're doing another build from the Colin First book. Yes, today I'm going to show you how to make this cool little super fun happy trike. Out of mainly, basically, 2 bikes and a pallet. Let's get cracking. Right, so materials that you're going to need to build this trike are a pallet, a small kid's bike, a larger kid's bike, 1 metre of 25 by 3mm angle iron, some 25 by 3mm flat bar, some M8 nuts, bolts and washers, and your hands! Right, now we start off with the small kid's bike, and all we actually want from this is the wheels. So let's get them off, and then the rest of it we can discard. Now you might need to let the tyres down a little bit to get them past the brake calipers. Got one out. Don't need the rest of this, it can all go. So, pallet I've used is a pallet that cement normally comes on, so pretty much every single builder's merchants across the UK will have these laying around. They're non-returnable, so they don't have to go back to the company, so they are there for the taking. The wood's pretty good quality on them, the slats line up pretty well, and just generally speaking, as far as pallets go, these are like, you know, upper class. Right, first thing we need to do is pick up an end of a pallet we're going to work from. That end's had a bit of a bash and got a broken bit of plank, so we're not going to bother with that. We're going to go down this end. This is the nicest end. And then to form the basis of our chassis, get the wheels, lay them in the outside sections of the pallet, and just make sure they fit in between the slats. So I know that these wheels will fit in between slats 1 and 4. So that means our chassis can be 4 planks long, so we can put the saw down there, cut the other 3 slats off. Don't discard them, we're going to need them, but that's the first job. Right, let's crack it. Now, if the slats didn't line up perfectly and you've kind of ended up with that, don't worry about it. That's going to be the back of our trike and it's not going to be a problem. Now, next thing, get your 25 by 3mm angle iron. Now, if you haven't got a steel stockist, you can get this on sites like eBay. You can order it to lengths. They will post it out and it's not very dear. So, put it down against the middle 2 slats of your pallet and you want to mark it from end to end. So from the furthest point of that slat to the furthest point of that slat, put a little mark and we want to cut down there and we want to do that 4 times. Yes! Get your muscles flexing! Right, that's 1. Another 3, Colin. 3 to go. That's them cut. Now the reason why I used a hacksaw and not an angle grinder is because this is a project from my book. The book is aimed at young people and not every young person is going to be quite confident using an angle grinder. So that's why we've done that. Now the next job I've got to do is I've got to put some holes in these things. Now these bits of angle iron are actually cradles and holders for our wheels on our chassis. So what we need to do is find the centre and drill a hole out so the axle can slide through and we can bolt the wheel to it. Now most axles are 10mm, however the front one on the small kids bike I've used is 8mm. So I've got to drill 2 10mm ones out and 2 out 8mm. So they go over the axles, like that, and then if we get the nuts, tighten them up. There we are, so we've got our 2 bits of angle iron on the edge of our wheel, and the next thing we need to do now is we need to measure the distance from here, the inside of the angle, to over here, the inside of this bit of angle, and that will give us the space between our pieces of wood that we need. That's 10 centimetres or 100mm. Now then, back over to the pallet. Okay, pay attention to this bit. So, when these are bolted to our wheel, they are 10 centimetres apart. One of them is going to sit on here, above this stud on the pallet, and then the other one, of course, is going to be 10 centimetres away from it, at the moment, floating in mid-air. Well, that's no good. We don't want that. We want it to be above this stud of the pallet, so we need to move this in. So, we need to cut these down and move that in, so the distance between these 2 pieces of wood is 10 centimetres. Now, if we measure the thickness of this piece of wood at the end here, it is 3 centimetres. So if we add that to our 10 centimetres, that gives us 13 centimetres. So if we now measure from the outside piece of this wood, 13 centimetres out, make a mark, and then cut all of those off, and then we can move this in, screw it all back on, and then that will be sitting above the wood. And if you're not quite sure what that meant, just keep watching, and then hopefully you'll look at it at the end and go, ah, I see what you mean there. Right, do some marking, some drawing and some cutting. Right, so now we've got that mark, we only actually need to cut the end planks across that line. The middle two, we can cut flush back with the bits of wood underneath. So we can cut them across here, 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 and the last two on our 13 centimetre line. Happy sawing! There we are. And you'll have something left over that looks a little bit like that. But don't chuck that away. Now repeat the exact steps on the other side, but remember to measure the other wheel because the two wheels are not the same widths. Yep, so instead of 10, this one's 11. Add the 3 for the other piece of wood, that gives us 14. The other side is 14 centimetres, which is a fantastic number. Okay, so we should be left with this little funny H-shaped looking piece, and then the two bits that we've cut off the end. And also a load of offcuts about this sort of size. Now then, next job which we can do, which these offcuts come in very useful for, is to remove these two middle pieces just from one side. Best way to do that, get your offcut, stick it in there, lean on it, and ping it off. That's got those bits off, look, nice and lovely. Now our next job is to take these little bits that stick up off here, we need to get them off. Now you could just twist them and bend them off, but we want to be careful, we don't want to split this piece of wood because we're keeping that. So, I found the best method is to put it against our little piece of frame like that so it's hanging over the edge, and then get one of our extra pieces of wood again and kind of put it down like that and then smack it with a hammer. And that bashes it off, and that's really good because it's pushing directly straight down on it, and then it's not trying to twist it in funny directions. It might split and snap, but it doesn't matter, we don't want them, we just don't want to break this main bit. Right, let's get them all off! Right, so we've got our main chassis block and our two little extra bits that we've got hold of, and this is now a good idea to run around with some sandpaper and get rid of all the splinters and all the sticky out bits, because remember, it was a pallet, it's not like a fine piece of furniture, but it could be. There we are, got our wonderful smooth sanded down chassis. Now next thing we need to do is take our end pieces and shove them back in. Because these need to go back in the end here, like that, push them under, they should fit nicely, and then drill and screw, fix them back into position. There we are, that's all screwed together. Now this is classed as the top because this is the bit where you nail into, and the little ends of the piece of pallet we chopped off, on the top bit we can actually get rid of them, we don't need them, but the ones underneath, don't get them off, no, leave them be. Okay, that's sorted for a minute. Now we need to turn our attention back to this piece. We need another one of these fat pieces of wood because we need to shove it in there so when we bolt our bike front to it, we've got something a little bit more substantial to bolt into. So the easiest way to get this off is just to run the saw across these top pieces of pallets, and then just like we've pinged those little nibbly bits off, we can do that, tap tap tap, pull the nails out, cut it to fit, bosh, slot it in, yes! Now next job, we need to get 3 of the lengths off our remaining piece of pallet, but we need to get them off in one piece. If you try pulling them off, levering them off, bashing them off with a hammer, you're probably going to split them and damage them. So, need to get a little bit clever. Now, they should be a piece of angle iron left over. If you've ordered a metre and your pallet is not wildly different to mine, so we're going to use this now. Put the pallet on the floor facing upwards, and then we're going to put this on top of the stud, give it a good clap with a hammer, and it should split them apart. And then once we've got the two sections in half, kind of bash off the splitty bits, which should leave some nails poking up and whatnot, but it should leave the long lengths of wood intact and ready for us to use. Right, so you should have a load of planks now. Now pick the 3 best ones, and then also those little offcuts which we had earlier, we're going to need them now as well. Right, so we're going to make the front section of our trike now. So get the shorter offcuts which you've got from before, and we're going to put one on the end, one either side of the centre, and of course one on the far end. Now they should all be roughly the same size, but they're probably going to vary a little bit, so I'd cut them down so they are all bang on the right side. And I've built this about 3 or 4 times now, and I've found 30 centimetres is about the optimum length they want to be. Okay, that's got them all fixed onto there, and now we need to put a little bracing piece underneath here. Now to get the true length of this, best off measuring it at the bottom just in case they wander off. So put that there, put a little mark, and then we'll cut that, but we'll screw it behind them like that. So this is a nice flat face. Now, there's a little bit of forward thinking going on here. I've only put one screw on the outer ones in kind of like the inside bottom corner, and the same on one of the middle ones, because that's because when we bolt the bike onto it, the bolts might want to go somewhere where you might put a screw. So kind of be a little bit skimpy on the screws at this point, because you can always add more later. Also, choose your screw length wisely, because you don't want them sticking out the other side. Right, now we need to do our little 45-degree strutty supporty bits. Yes, there's a technical term. Okay, so get one of our lovely long lengths, kind of just wedge it in between the planks at the back, and then onto our front section, get it all nice and lined up, and then get your pencil, and then just mark underneath, like that, and along the front there. Cut that, drill and screw it, brilliant. And then it's all nice and sturdy then, because we've got some angles in it. Just about done. One more little job. We're just going to cut this piece out here. We left it in there while I was building it because I didn't want to snap these end pieces off, so it kind of give it a little bit of support. Turn your frame upside down, get your wheels, and of course they drop in these little gaps here. Now the reason why we never drilled the angle iron out to fix these in place is because we didn't know where the nails in the pallets were going to come. But we can see where they are now. So if you take them out and just mark where the nails are, and then kind of put some lines sticking forward, so you know not to drill a screw through there because you'll hit a nail. And do that on all of them. And then we can mark the angle iron on these edges ones. You might want to do it on the side like that. And then we can put that back in. And then we can see now where the nails are. Then we can just put little marks in where to drill the holes. Then we can drill them and fix them into position. There we go. Ta-da! There we are. Chassis finished. Lovely, lovely. Next job. Got to stick a front on it, and then we're nearly done. Now basically what we do now is we get the front of a bike and bolt it to the front of our frame. Now which particular bike you use won't really make any difference because the method is still the same, but some will work better than others. Now the ideal size bike for this is a small mountain bike with 20-inch wheels. You can use a BMX, but I'll explain now what you want to be looking at. Now this is a girl's bike, which is not ideal because the crossbar doesn't come across here, and how we're going to attach this to our frame is going to be much more helpful if we've got a crossbar which is higher up. The BMX of course has the crossbar, fantastic, but the handlebars sit a lot higher, so that's not ideal either. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to chop them both up and offer them both up so you can see how they would both go. Now ideally you want the boys version of the small mountain bike, which is the one I use as the kind of the test and the prototype ones, but I've got to get this video done and I can't find any more in the scrapyard. I can only find the girls version or BMXs, so we're going to run with them for the video, but it's all good because you get to see different types of bike being used. Yes. That's my excuse. Now whichever bike you use, all you're going to need is the front. So if I just show you up on here, let's lift this on here. So first thing we need to do is chop the back off, and the best way to do this is get your hacksaw and either chop down near here, right near the seat post, or you can go a little bit further forward so your saw misses the chain and everything, which would be somewhere down here. That's all good as well. Right, so we've got the front of our bike, keep that, and then the back one, don't chuck it away because there's another project in the book where you can make a fire tornado using that. Yep. And then we'll offer this up now to our chassis, frame, whatever you want to call it, pallet. Now, if you can imagine this is the ground, I flip the chassis up onto its side, so we get the front of our bike, and we can now offer it up against our little frame so we can see where to cut it. Now, if it was completely flat, that's what it would be like, but a little bit of downward tilt like that is not bad. You don't want it to be like that, that's not very good. So I think a little bit of an angle on there is very lovely. And then we put this up, oh don't fall over. Then we can shove this up here, roughly, maybe tilt it back a little bit. And then we can kind of work out roughly where we want to cut our frame. Because the handlebars don't want to be whacking this. Right, let's chop that. Now if we use the BMX, it'd be the same, but we'd just offer it up like that. Try and wedge that down there, and a bit down there. Same thing again, mark it across there, chop it up, and then we'll go to put it on. Now we've just got to connect the two together. Now remember our last piece of angle iron? We need that now. Chop it in half. So we've basically made two brackets. We're going to drill 2 holes for 2 bolts. One bolt's going to go through the bike frame, the other bolt is going to go through the chassis. And if we offer it up on our frame, we can see whereabouts they want to be. Oh! Right, so with those drilled, now we're going to mark the holes where we need to drill the frames. You see, I marked round the frame and the brackets so I could offer them back up in the same position. And then we're going to drill them! So we've drilled 8mm holes for M8 bolts. The length of these bolts of course are going to vary on depending what bike frame you're using. But you'll notice I put some nuts on the inside of the frame. Now that was so when we tighten the nuts up we can tighten 2 against themselves against the frame. If we just put 1 nut on the end and try to tighten it up, it would just crush the tube up and then you'd never really get it that tight and it would just make a general mess of things. Right, now let's offer it up against our chassis. Mark the holes for that, drill, bolt it on, and then we just need to little stabilisers at the side. Right, nearly finished. We're just going to add a brace from here to here to make it proper rigid, because although this is quite strong, if you went around the corner the whole thing would probably snap off. So we're going to get our bit of 25 for 3mm flat and we're going to put that across there. So if you want to imagine, we're going to bend some tags on the end, about 2.5 centimetres. So if you kind of measure a little bit further back on each bit, so say the centre of the bit of wood on the end of the cart here and a little bit behind the head tube, because we've got to get a bolt to go through and we don't want the bolt to go through the head tube. So put that up there, get a rough measurement. That's about 23.5 centimetres, and then we're going to add 5 centimetres on that for the little tags that are going to go on the end. And then we're going to drill holes, and bend it up and bolt it on, and then it's pretty much done. Right, that's cut our little strips of metal. Now I've drilled the holes in the end because it's easier to do now than after the next stage. And the next stage is we need to put little bends on the end from our 2.5 centimetre lines which we've drawn. Now if you've got a vise, you can stick it in a vise and just tap it over with a hammer. If you haven't got a vise, you can use some of the offcuts of wood left over from the pallet, put it over the end and bash it round that. It won't give you such a tight radius, but it does work. That's put our little bends on the end. Now you might need to do it a few times to get it exactly right. If we now sit it up against our bike frame and chassis, you can see that it's nice and flush with each one. Now, it's not going to sit like that. Ours wants to sit kind of down on the angle here, or as low as we can get it, which would be about there. And now in doing that, this doesn't sit very flat up against our pallet now. So what we do, you get two adjustable spanners and put them next to each other, and then kind of just twist the metal, and then it will twist that one back so it sits right up against it, and then that's all nice and smooth. So now just mark the holes in the frame and on the pallet chassis, and then we can bolt it on. And then we can mark and do the other one. The chances are they're not going to be the same size unless this thing is absolutely bang on in the middle, which it probably won't be. And the bolt that goes through here obviously needs to fix both of these on, so make sure it's nice and long sticking out the other side, and don't put a nut on the end of that one yet.
Yeah.
One side done, and before I bolted it on I put the screws in that we'd missed out when we was making the front of the chassis. So now I've got to do is just measure up this side, offer it up, drill it in, bolt it on, and then it's pretty much done. And there we are, it's finished. Now if you get a cushion, shove that in there, check the brakes and everything are all good, tyre pressures, take it for a spin. And all that for just a pallet and some old bikes. Now, that is one of 10 projects which you'll find in my book. It's out now, there's a clickable link at the end of the video. As well as having cool projects like that with step-by-step guides, there is also lots of stuff on the previous things I've done, pictures, information, you name it, it's all there. Kids will love it, excellent Christmas present. I'm plugging it obviously because it's my book. So they are, get involved, get building. It's all about you people. See you in the next video.